Sourdough bread. Seems like everybody's making it these days. Maybe you thought about making it, but you've gone online and you've looked at the recipes and the videos, and it just seems too time consuming and too complicated and too confusing. Well, I'm going to show you a way to make sourdough bread that is simple and easy and straightforward, and it'll produce a loaf of sourdough bread that is delicious. Now, if you're looking for fancy artisanal sourdough with the big holes, the high hydration dough, this is not your video. Go somewhere else. Today I'm going to show you how to make simple, basic bread that tastes good. And by the way, makes great toast. You can put your butter and jam on it. It won't run through the holes. This stuff is great. You'll like it. I'm going to show you how to make it right now. First thing you're going to need to make sourdough bread is a starter. Now, I made this starter about 5 years ago. It's just flour and water. And if you want to know how to make a sourdough starter, there's lots of recipes online. It's pretty simple to do. But this is my starter. Now, if you go to some of those websites, they'll tell you that you need to feed your starter before you bake with it, maybe sometimes 3 or 4 times. But I took this starter directly out of the fridge. See all that nasty liquid on top? They call that hooch. And a lot of times they recommend that you pour that off, but that's a mistake. What you want to do instead is to stir that in. I'm going to stir that in because that's a lot of flavor. Stir that into the starter. All right. Now, once again, I have not fed this starter since last week. I made some sourdough bread last week, and I put the starter after I was done. I put it in the refrigerator. It's been sitting in the refrigerator ever since then. Now, normally, I would feed my starter up before I bake with it and let it rise and bubble up for a day before I bake. But this time I'm trying a little experiment to see if I can make sourdough bread from starter directly from the fridge. So if this works, it'll be great. If it doesn't work, you'll never know about it because this video will never see the light of day. The next thing I recommend that you have is a kitchen scale. This makes it a whole lot easier. It's much easier to make your sourdough bread and determine your portions by weight rather than by volume. And so, and you'll find that a lot of the recipes are written by weight rather than volume. So I have this kitchen scale. It's a cheap Cuisinart. Didn't cost me a lot of money. Doesn't have many bells or whistles, but yeah, it's a pretty good scale. So, whoops, sorry. Does the job. So I put my bowl there, and I'm going to tare it. I always measure in grams, and I start with my starter. My recipe calls for 85 grams of starter. So in it goes till I get to 80 foot. There's 23, 95. All right, so let's get some out. 89, 86, close enough. Oh, okay, we're right there. Great. So, 85 grams of starter. The next step is to add your liquid. My recipe calls for 360 grams of water. Now, what I use is this stuff. This is whey. Where do you get whey, you ask? This is a byproduct of yogurt. So when I drain the whey off my yogurt, I keep it and I use it to make sourdough bread and other things with it. So I'm going to add 320 grams of 360 grams of water. Had to check my recipe there. All right, 330, just about there. Okay, with 350, 5, 8. There we go, 360, perfect. Now I like to use the whey because it adds a nice tangy flavor to the sourdough. And anyway, the next thing I do is I kind of stir the starter into the liquid. It's sort of like you're dissolving the yeast. If you were to be using commercial yeast, you would dissolve it into your liquid first. This is okay. So now I have my starter mixed into my liquid. Now I'm going to add my flour. This is just ordinary all-purpose flour. People ask me where I get my flour. Actually, nobody asks me that. I just get it from the supermarket and I buy the cheapest stuff I can find, and yeah, it always seems to work. So 520 grams of flour. And yes, you can use, went over a little bit, close enough, 521. And then I need to add salt, and I should have measured this ahead of time, but I always measure my salt separately in one of these little jars because it's real easy to overdo the salt. So I want to make sure I don't overdo it. So again, just your regular kosher salt, and I want 10 grams of that. There's 9. Come on. There we go. Close enough. 11. I'll put that in there. Then you just start stirring it up, mixing it up, mix it up, mix it up. Just want to get everything all incorporated here. Get the water the liquid all combined with the. What you're looking for here is what they call in the business, I guess, shaggy dough stage. That's what we got right here. So that's good. Then after you've got it there, all the water is, and then get in there with your hands and sort of mix it around, and get everything off the sides and off the bottom and everything on. It's pretty sticky right now. But yeah, so basically there it is. It's all put together. And that really is all I had to do with it right now today. And that will go, I'll cover that. And then let it rise. And then tomorrow morning, I'll do the second rise. I'll do the shaping in the second rise and bake it. So I'll see you tomorrow. So it's the next day, and here's our dough. It's been rising for about 20 hours. Now remember, this was cold sourdough starter. I hadn't fed it, and you'll notice it's risen, and there's quite a bit of bubbles in the dough. So I'm pretty pleased with that. Today we're going to shape it, do the second rise, and bake. So this is basically the process. It takes a couple of days. It's very slow and gentle, but I'm going to show you now how we shape it and how we bake it. Okay, to shape our dough, we're going to have to put down a little flour here, flour our surface pretty well, because it's pretty sticky. We don't want it to stick. And using our bowl scraper, just need to scrape the dough out very gently onto the surface. Alright, flour on top. Now this is a no-knead recipe, but I'm going to knead it anyway, just a little bit. It's just kind of smooth things up. This is really sticky. About 10 times. Now we're going to shape it into a, now I could bake this in a loaf pan, but today I'm going to bake it in this Dutch oven. So I'm going to make a, what they call a boule, basically a round loaf, and that's pretty simple. You just kind of have to, what I do, a bit more, because it's sticky. Just take the edges and keep pulling them up. This is to create tension in the dough, to get that nice, tight, crusty crust. Now you just kind of shape it. Use the stickiness of the dough in your favor as it sticks to the counter, and you just sort of pull it, turn it, pull it, and you'll notice as it sticks it kind of turns under and makes the top nice and tight. So basically what you want to do is get a nice round shape. That looks pretty good to me. Now what I do then is take some parchment paper, roughly a square, doesn't have to be perfect, because what I need to do is to transfer this into that Dutch oven I showed you. So I use the parchment paper to do that. It's just a matter, pick up the dough, plop it in the middle. I'm going to put my dough in this Dutch oven. I want you to notice that in the bottom of the Dutch oven I have this circle of tin foil, and that keeps the bottom of the bread, prevents the bottom of the bread from burning when you bake it. It's going to plop this into the center of my Dutch oven. And I'm kind of pushing the parchment paper into the corners away from the dough so that as the dough rises it doesn't get messed up by the parchment paper. So there we go, and now we're going to set it up for the second rise. I'm going to do the second rise in my oven. This oven is not heated, it hasn't been on today. I do, however, have the light on, and that provides enough warmth to rise the dough. Now once again, sourdough is a slow and gentle process. It takes a long time. This may take anywhere from 2 to 4 hours to rise. So now we'll just leave it. We'll come back in a couple hours and check it, see if it's risen. So it's been about 4 hours now, and the dough is ready to bake. And let me just show you what it looks like now. You can see that it's risen quite a bit, puffed up, and it looks like it's ready to bake. So before we bake it, we need to slash it, and I'm going to do that with this razor blade. I always put a little bit of oil on it. I don't know if that makes any difference or not, but it can't hurt, right? This is just a regular single-edge razor blade, probably not the best thing to use, but it's what I have. And you just have to, the reason we slash the dough is to control the expansion, because if we don't slash it, as the dough expands, it can blow out the side or crack in some weird way. So the scoring, as they call it, is supposed to control that. And there we go. Now I'm going to place it in the oven. Now I put it in the oven cold, and the oven is cold. This is not the usual way to do things. This is the way I have figured out to do it. And I'll set the oven at 400 degrees. And we'll bake that for 30 minutes. Bake it 30 minutes with the lid on, and then remove the lid and bake it another 20 minutes with the lid off. The reason we bake it with the lid on is it holds in the steam, and that prevents the dough from getting hard too soon and allows it to expand. So we'll come back in 30 minutes and see what we've got. So it's been 30 minutes with the lid on. Now we're going to pull it out, see how it's risen. Ooh, very nice. You see how it's risen, but how light it is. Now we're going to put it in uncovered to darken it up. For 20 minutes. So here it is. We're going to take it out of the Dutch oven here in a minute. First, just to be sure, check it with my thermometer, and it should read about 200 degrees. And there it is, about 210, so I know that it's done. The temptation would be to cut right into this, but we can't do that because when you cut into it when it's hot, it'll get gummy. So you need to let it cool completely, and then we'll cut it open and see what the crumb looks like. So the moment we've all been waiting for, the bread is cool. We're going to cut it open and see what the crumb looks like and see how it tastes. Alright, I hope you can see this. Got a fairly open crumb, a few big holes. Looks pretty good. This is the way I like it. Not real big holes. Like I say, if you want the artisanal bread with the big holes, you need to go to another website. But this is the way I like it. You can put your butter on this, and it won't drip through it. You jelly it, it won't drip through it, and it smells delicious. So we're gonna give it a taste and see how it tastes. A little butter on it. Now, that's good. But in order to know for sure, we got to get our official taste tester in here. All right, want to try this? Is it good?
This is delicious. Very good and tasty. Homemade bread. Sourdough.
Okay, don't overdo it. Okay, so that's it. It's simple and straightforward. There's no strange steps, no autolies, no stretch and folds. You don't have to spend hours fooling around with your bread. Just a few minutes over a 2-day period, and you've got really tasty sourdough bread. If I can do it, you can do it. I guarantee it. So go home and try it out. Bye.